To start, what was your immediate reaction to the film, and what resonated for you?
Ladies first.
I hate crying in public, people know that. I've been crying nonstop. I know a lot of us have been crying nonstop. So I may cry a little bit up here, so excuse that.
Okay.
I think what resonated the most is, I think, you know, we talk about who failed us, right? So like, who failed? People talk, I think in the film at one point he talked about, I think his siblings were talking about we failed him. Like, did my grandmother fail him? Did my mother, my sister? And I think when we talk about those kinds of things, it perpetuates these things that we did something wrong, right? That it wasn't policies and all these bombs that created these things. So what we want to say is, no, the refugee resettlement failed us. This is the ultimate failure. You know, we came in the 80s. I actually was born in Cambodia in 1978, when the Khmer Rouge regime fell. And our family fled and lived in two different refugee camps. And this is deeply, I mean, the work that we do at Mekong is deeply personal, but deeply political as well. And I think the work that we're doing now, and I think me and Leah, you should definitely step in this space to talk about the amazing work of One Love movement through the Southeast Asian Freedom Network. But I think that my community is just trying to survive. And I think we, you know, part of it is we haven't been awake, and this film will do that for people. I remember when I was about 18 years old, when I first found out that the repatriation agreement was signed with Cambodia, that they were being forced. And at that time, I was doing organizing around the welfare rights. Like, people, welfare and food stamps were being taken away. And all I could think was, God damn it, policies after policies continue to ravage my family, my people. And that's why I made a commitment to be part of the social justice movement, because these systems are not going to change. Before Gosal, there was Kim Ho-ma, who sat in detention because they didn't have a country to deport him to. He fought the U.S. government, and because of that, the U.S. went to the United States, to Cambodia, and said, you have to sign this if you want tourist visa. So that's the kind of tactics that are being used in our communities. And this morning I was, you know, we were in a conversation talking about Vietnam and what it meant to be home. I went to, since I left Cambodia, I haven't been back, and I was there about 3 years ago. And I couldn't, I don't know, my parents are here, they should be here, or maybe they couldn't take it, they stepped out of the room. And I remember telling myself, oh my God, I'm gonna go home. Like, you know, home. And there's a political home that I've built here in the United States with my people in this room. But I never, when I went, they were like, no, you're an American. You know, so I can imagine what it's like for Gosal to feel home and not home. So that's what resonated for me the most. And I think that, you know, doing the work in the community, we're learning to heal as we organize. We're experimenting. And I think that there are so many Gosal. We don't want not one more Gosal. And I think he's calling for us to commit to a grassroots movement that is about justice beyond the immigration, detention, deportation. And I think, Jan, you spoke of it, you know, which is there's a better society. We can live in a different way. So I take that call, and I hope everyone take the call of Gosal very seriously. Yeah, and I know Lowell folks got to Skype him in, right? Lowell people got to Skype him in, so that's what resonated to me the most.
Yeah, well, sorry, it's kind of touching. Do I need the mic?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was touching, and me and Leo, we already shared a whole bunch of napkins, but the reality is, this is what we see every day. The work that my group does basically is people like Kassav. We're directly affected. We have criminal convictions. We are not US citizens, which means we're the first persons to get deported. So I've been involved with Families for Freedom from since I went through the whole process, detention, deportation, fighting it, understand the whole issue of final orders. You have an issue where you get a bag and carry where your life, you do not move. You're dammed up. If you are flowing, once you enter the deportation proceedings, you end up in a dam. If you know dams are not natural in the flow of life. A river flows, you flow. That's what that does. The film itself showed me what he has gone through, which I totally understand being there for some of those things, but also on a wider level, is people know, but most people don't understand what actually goes on. So you look at Kassav, and he did 14 years odd, how many years he did for an issue where the criminal system has its fines, its times, everything. As a non-citizen, there's a flip side to that, and a lot of things in the movie are saying exile, which resonate with the word and the words that we say. We become exiled. We get kicked out of some place where he actually said, you have a permanent, legal permanent residence, it's a green card. The word permanent does not exist. If you're not a US citizen and you have a criminal conviction, more than likely you want to be placed in deportation proceedings. And that's just the beginning of chaos. When you talk about families being separated, it's serious, it's not no joke thing. When you talk about the inhumanity in the detention centers, what was the PSD?
PTSD.
Yeah. Look, that is real. That is not no joke business. Even when you get put back out here in this space, you still have to suffer. I have a friend who did a year and a half. He's on 116th Street. For a whole month after he got out, he said nothing to nobody. That's how your life is. And the film itself basically points out a whole bunch of stuff. For people who don't know, but also for people who know and not totally understand, that is the life that we face when we leave here. Most people talk about a 2 million, the number that Obama is going to reach in terms of this administration deporting. Since I've been involved in this issue, it's close to 4 million people, if not more. Now, just imagine that's 4 million people. That's not one person, because look at Kassav. Look at how large his family is. So that family itself is going through a whole bunch of madness. There's actually a concept now that there's an American diaspora outside of America. So people are getting deported, not only to Asia. Anywhere you go and you have an American accent or style about you, you're identified. We actually carry shirts that are called deportees. So that word is being, we know a different type of people, you know, so we're deportees in different places. We have to click together. We get blamed by governments for so-called rising crimes. We get blamed for just about everything. And one of the things I like about Kassav, I think he said it in a certain way, is that don't consider us to be victims, even though I hear the word. We have survived, okay? And surviving is just the next step that we need to take to live in. Because what it is, right now, all of us are surviving. We're not living our life yet. Kassav is not living his life yet. He has survived, and he's on his way to get to a point where he can live a life. And that's what we try to, you know, promote in the work that we do.
One of the reactions, and sometimes common reaction I feel that I've heard when I talk a little bit about the film or the issue of deportation is, if you've committed a serious crime, if you've committed a felony, you should be deported. What are your feelings or reactions about that?
You want me to answer that?
Yes, I do.
Look, straight up, right? It is hypocrisy, and that's just straight up business. Way back in the day, 1920-something, like Supreme Court, when you were arguing some of those major immigration cases that put us where we're at right now, basically said, look, deportation is a punishment. You cannot excuse that. You're taking somebody from everything that they know and send them away from that. And this is after another punishment, after serving time. Criminal justice system, and I understand when we say the criminal justice system, because the justice system is not nothing about being fair, it's not about no justice, it's criminal. It has its rules and regulation for when you commit the crime. You either pay a fine or you do the time. As a United States citizen, you can commit the craziest of crimes, and do the allotted sentence and allowed to come back on the street. Whatever issues that is not the greatest thing, because you cut off a whole bunch of other things. As a non-US citizen, not only do you not get to come out on the street like the South, you get exiled. But Americans prefer and don't mind to sit beside or live beside a convicted US citizen who may have done the most crucial crimes. But it's all right for that person to stay here, but yet for non-citizens to leave. And immigration is an administrative issue. It is not a criminal issue. We have served the time for whatever crime we have done. This is something that's been added on by some people, morals, and you have to question those people's morals.
Before we break out to the audience for some questions or comments, what are the ways community organizations and groups in New York City are fighting back against these systems, and what can people do to get involved?
Mia Leah, you want to speak to this too, please? But I will
open
the space so that you can also join us. You know, I remember when we first started doing organizing, we were like, we're all the Cambodians, we're all the Vietnamese organizers. Right here in this room. But I think, you know, one of the work that we are committed to is to address some of the failed refugee resettlement issues. And we started as a collective to start something called the Southeast Asian Freedom Network. And this is an organization, a coalition of different organizations around the country that are working in the Southeast Asian community, doing community organizing. And what's interesting is that, you know, another point in the film that I was like, oh, this is it, you know, like when I think his nephew was talking about how when they found out that he was getting deported, that he was prosecuted, that they were just like, they've been ready for that, you know. So I think that our community has been practicing laws, getting ready for laws. And it's crazy.
Thank you, Cheyenne.
That we've been practicing this. You know, when his mom lost her husband, and that we gotta continue to practice resiliency and resistance.
Yeah.
And what that takes is gonna take a lot of people in this room around the country, and me and Leah can talk about some of the work of One Love movement, to take care of our family, but also to fight not just with Cambodians, Vietnamese, but really across many race, gender, and we have to build and commit ourselves to a movement that is built on love. So Amelia, I don't know if you want to say something.
Yeah, I'll just say quickly, hi everybody, my name is Amelia, and I'm with One Love Movement, and I love you too. I think I don't want to say too much, but I don't want to take up time from the panelists, but we are committed as the Southeast Asian Freedom Network to really building at this moment, this crucial time, a grassroots network of people, of communities, of people who are directly affected, of people who feel this pain in their hearts, and be able to use that to push for policy change. But policy change isn't our end goal, right? And there's a difference between policy advocacy and grassroots building and grassroots organizing, and we need to recognize that if we get stuck on changing the laws, then we're missing the bigger vision, which is to build a community that is caring, that is loving, that is taking care of each other, so that we can be the fighters, the freedom fighters that we need to be for the long term. Because if we change the deportation law, there's all these other laws that are coming down, the welfare laws, incarceration, juvenile justice laws, all of these things we have to be ready to fight. And we all came together as the Southeast Asian Freedom Network for, before the tour, but really wanting to use the tour of Cambodian Son to build up this energy and this fight in all of us so that we can do that together and not get misguided by being so focused on the politicians. We need to focus on each other.
Thank you. Yes.
I'll just add in terms of the organizing and building that community. It's mad important because this is just a moment, like Melia says. We have to protect and teach our people and guide our people through the crazy stuff that is out there right now, but also build a foundation. Because I remember when I started first, we used to go to the Bronx, and there was a large Asian community up there that we were working with because the youth were being they're being attacked from all over. One, because they were Asian and they were living in Kingsbridge, that area up there.
That was me.
Yeah, they disappeared.
We're still here.
No, I'm not saying a lot of the youths disappeared. They were getting attacked by both the Latino gangs, the black gangs, and then the police. So they clicked together. And by clicking together, they end up with criminal convictions, which means that they end up getting deported. A year and a half ago, I went to do check some other groups up there. And I was asking a youth, well, what happened to the Asian population that used to be in this community? He didn't say something real nice, but he also said something I was telling. We got rid of them. The only people I saw who were Asian were elderly people and grandkids. I didn't see much of them. What I'm saying, if the community had built and not necessarily isolated, but insulated those folks, it would have helped a whole bunch of other people, because this is not just happening to Asians, West Indians, it's happening to all of us. The ultimate tool is the deportation. Somebody said the industry is a mad industry. They're making money off of us. We are commodities. So we just get packaged. Whether or not we pass the sell-by date, we get put on the plane, like Master was saying. I'm sure if they have any Jamaicans in here or people from the DR, there are scheduled trips where immigration goes around the country, pick us up, put us in a certain place, warehouse us, and then ship us off. So every month, a quantity of people is getting deported. Every day, 1,300 people get deported. So we have to build a community, we have to build a foundation.
Any comments from the audience or questions?
I'm an inpatient psychiatric nurse, and I have seen young men like Hassan. And it's the universality of it is that it's not just, it's our young men here. I've seen that they destroy the youth. A lot of the psychosis is caused in these prisons. And then they become non-entities. And I see them. I mean, they come in, they come out. They don't know. They have dreams, but they don't know what to do because they've just been destroyed. And when I saw him, it wasn't a Cambodian. This was just a young man that was being destroyed, like a lot of these young men, and it's so painful. And I thank you, because I wasn't even aware of this, we think of as an African American that it's just happening to our youth, but to see it in such a blatant, thing, it's painful. It's painful for our children. So just thank you for that.
Yes.
Just a quick question. What if they didn't get past the interview that the Cambodian officials did in Tacoma? Were they just free or were they still warehoused? Not for deportation, but to keep them from the general society at large?
From what I understand, now there's a statute of limitation or whatnot. Basically, you can hold you up to only 1 year. Before that, when did the law change? Do you remember?
When was the
4 years ago? Anyway, before that, it was indefinite.
Yeah.
Well, the reality is, after 1996, the laws have changed. So basically, once you do over a year or your sentence, even though you don't do the year, you're considered for immigration purposes an aggravated felon. Now that alone makes you mandatory detainable and mandatory deportable. Casal got deported as an aggravated felon. At the end of it, he says he cannot come back. That's just the reality. Because the way the law is right now, once you leave as an aggravated felon and get deported, that's it, exile for you. What you speak of in terms of, they have a statute that says, a Supreme Court ruling, the United States cannot hold somebody indefinitely if they cannot get to remove them. So what we have done, and other groups have done, is basically done a whole bunch of outreach to the consulates and the countries to say, look, before you just take the word of ICE officials that this person has to be deported, go and look about that person's welfare. Is that person leaving somebody behind? Because I understand 1996, the laws took away discretion from a judge to look at a family and say, well, I can't deport this wife or this mother because she has American children. Gone. The judge, all the judge does is referee between prosecutor, and if you happen to have a attorney, you do the refereeing. So reality is we have no help inside. So, you know the law and order thing where you say, if you can't afford a lawyer, one will be given to you? No, that's law and order, that's TV stuff. In immigration, that's not given. So usually, once your case has been declared final, you have a 90-day period that the government tries to find travel documents or try to remove you. The Supreme Court has given them an extra 90 days, so you have 180 days where they can hold you. Now what most people are doing, once 180 days are up, especially if the government's been kind of sensitized to the issue, is to file within the federal courts and habeas to get released. You will be released eventually if a country does not take you. Going kind of deep, but the US has a different kind of thing too, that they can ask a third country whether or not they want to accept you. So it's kind of devious for some. Well, the system is devious, to tell you the truth. So they find ways of trying to remove you. So if they can't send you back to Cambodia, if for instance Laos may be taking you or Vietnam may take you and agree to it, they will send you there. You have to agree to it and you have another fight. So when the guy says somebody was in there, like in Europe for 10 years, we deal with people who've been in there for 8 years, 6 years, 7 years. We have lost contact with somebody, an Asian guy, who they can't send him anywhere. And he's so messed up, right, that he's losing the ability to be coherent. Whatever, so he can't even speak. The people in them release him, tell him you can go. He's in Alabama. He goes outside and come back in. So it's kind of dread.
I thoroughly enjoyed the film very much. I just have a comment on the editing. I think it's really awesome that sort of a poetic style that you kind of integrated that I haven't seen a lot. So especially when, you know, I think his friend in California and then him walking through the park, you had like transitions of two scenes and it going in the same direction. How did that, like the editing process for you in terms of, did you want to go for like poetic style or was it hard in terms of putting the film together?
There are two things I was very mindful of. One was that I didn't know how to make a documentary in the standard format, and you have to transcribe everything, or there's a certain way of doing that. And I was not going to do that. Like, there's no way. I had no patience for it. And at the same time, like camera crew, I was doing everything. I was walking around, and the microphone is attached right on top of the camera. So I would have to stay probably within 2 feet of his mouth to get any decent sound, and I would be just walking around. And we already had a relationship as, you know, friends and, you know, co-workers, whatnot. So it was very casual, impromptu on every moment, and that's the only way I could capture it, and that's the only way I could turn it into a documentary. So there is more free space to that, and on top of that, there are a lot of mistakes I made in editing. That's like, oh, this is cool. I make it upside down, like, wow, it works. Well, and then I get bored quickly because this is documentary. I come from narrative, yeah. So I get bored and I start doing some weird stuff. because I'm bored. I'm falling asleep listening to these guys 10,000 times. So I was throwing something. Oh, this park thing works. It's, a lot of accidents happen in the desperation of boredom, you know. And like throwing Picasso in the back, whatever. Okay, it might be too much, but you know, I'm bored. Like, let me do this. So that's how I kept myself interested in the project itself. So I think that it came up because I'm not a trained documentary filmmaker, and I have a background in animation. So that's part of the things that's kind of mixed up, and yeah, it came out like this. I learned a lot. I'm learning actually every day right now on this tour too. So it's I had somebody here. My friend was just saying he was this artsy fartsy filmmaker from like I've known her like for 10 years or whatnot. And she was surprised that, oh, you're doing something with the activism? What happened to you? I've never labeled myself an activist because I have some other concerns and all that, but I'll explain that later. But what I realized was like the power of, and I think people who are sitting here too as well, is that the power that you have when you start actually devoting yourself to bigger purpose, and you have that strength to overcome all the personal difficulties and bad attitude from here and there. You want to throw it away, you want to burn everything, right? But you somehow have the strength to overcome that when you designate yourself to a bigger purpose that you don't know exists, but you feel it, but with your faith you follow it. And I never committed my filmmaking in that sense until with this one. So I think that's what I learned, and I'm seeing the power of that. And I'm not getting a lot of compliments, but despite all that, I'm grounded because I'm not getting compliments for me. I know I deliver something that people needed, and I feel very honored to have served it. And I've never felt that making film. It was always about, you know, me, my art, all that, blah blah blah, you know. But so I think that's the biggest thing: how exciting it is to serve. That I didn't know before, and now I know. And I think that's a power that I won't let go, and I want to teach other people about that at some point. Thanks, y'all.